Story 1. There is an idea that men need to cry more. Instead of suggesting that not crying means something is wrong, we should be saying that it is okay to cry and okay not to cry. Sometimes we are just numb. Sometimes the tears do not come when we think they should. That is perfectly fine. We need to accept and understand our emotions, not force them from one box into another. Story 2. I don't identify with some common ideas discussed here. For example, I have no particular interest in receiving flowers. I see men explaining to women that we never receive them and that it would make our day to get them. Honestly, flowers are just flowers. Keep buying me socks and whiskey. Everyone. Story 3. We are inherently incapable of picking up on subtleties, body language, and hints. The phrase, "we are simple creatures," always irritates me as well. Story 4. Maybe not a super controversial point, but there are no real rules on how to be a man. Anything that feels like an obligation to act or behave in a certain way because you are a man is imposed on you either by yourself or by others, and it is not a true requirement. Consequently, when you feel anger towards effeminate men or men who engage in non-traditional masculine activities, you are really just upset that they are not adhering to the standards you impose on yourself, and they are not facing consequences for it. Story 5. A friend told me, "A man's work is never done. He works a lot of overtime, and on weekends he spends his time fixing things and doing lawn work. If it gives you joy, go for it. However, other men should not be shamed for wanting to relax during their time off or enjoy lazy days." Story 6. Men need to be more accepting and proactive regarding our collective mental health struggles. It is not women's fault that Men's Mental Health Month goes unnoticed. It is our responsibility. We need to show our support for one another and not be afraid to express affection. We must act as if we care about the loneliness of our fellow men and reach out to them more. Story 7. I have a few points. I believe men really need to start taking accountability for boosting each other. Women are generally better at this, even if it is superficial. It works. There are too many men using steroids, to the point where it is damaging their self-image. Story 8. The idea that all the good men are either in her friend zone or have walked away may hold some truth for a small percentage. While it's easy to dismiss dating as a farce today, many of us may be comforting ourselves with that notion instead of acknowledging our shortcomings that could disqualify us from being considered one of the good men. Story 9. You do not have to establish your career before marrying your spouse. I am in my 30s and have held various jobs in the past decade. Some I have chosen to leave, and I have been let go from others. If you work in a warehouse, it can be challenging to secure a promotion if you prefer to maintain your ethics rather than engage in unprofessional behavior to advance in your career. Modern career women might disagree, but I prioritize taking an annual vacation with a genuine partner over someone solely interested in financial gain. Story 10. I don't think it's a men's issue necessarily, but more of an issue within the male community, and that's the whole alpha male scene. These individuals are delusional and treat women poorly. Story 11. I would like more bathrooms to have dividers between the urinals. Most people do not seem to care, but I find it much more comfortable. Do not even get me started on urinal troughs. Story 12. The idea that being constantly cynical, not passionate about anything, appearing tough, sizing people up, and not laughing or smiling makes you look cool does not hold true. It leads to being perceived as boring, toxic, repressed, and unapproachable. Story 13. The length of suit and sport coats has become an issue. They are too short these days. The bottom of the jacket should extend to the middle of your fingers when your arms are at your sides. The current trend of short jackets looks unappealing, resembling wearing a younger sibling's jacket. Additionally, the suit pants are also too tight and short. Story 14. Not necessarily a men's issue. However, I see a lot of anti-feminism rhetoric in this community almost daily, which I cannot support. Story 15. Gender-based biased roles should not exist in favor of men. I work and live with women who can perform jobs and tasks better than men. Some men are also better suited for roles typically associated with women. Story 16. Lack of masculinity is a significant contributor to many men's challenges. Strength. Physical strength and resilience are often emphasized, though emotional and mental strength are also key components. Independence, valuing self-reliance and the ability to care for oneself and others without heavy reliance on others. Courage, the ability to confront challenges, risks, and fears directly, often aimed at protecting or providing for others. Stoicism, the capacity to remain calm and composed, especially in adversity, often suppressing outward emotional expressions. Assertiveness, a tendency to be confident and direct in communication, taking charge of situations and making decisive decisions. Competitiveness, a drive to excel and compete, often in physical, professional, or social contexts. Responsibility, a strong sense of duty and obligation to provide for and protect loved ones, fulfill commitments, and contribute to society. Leadership, the ability to guide, influence, and inspire others, often taking on roles that require decision-making and direction. Resilience, the capacity to recover from setbacks, maintain focus, and continue moving forward despite difficulties. Honor, a commitment to ethical behavior, integrity, and maintaining one's reputation, often aligned with a personal or familial code. Loyalty, a deep sense of allegiance to family, friends, and causes, often prioritizing others' needs above one's own. Ambition, a drive to achieve, succeed, and reach goals, often connected to career and personal development. Protectiveness, a natural inclination to protect and defend those who are vulnerable or in need. Discipline, the ability to control impulses, work diligently, and maintain focus on long-term objectives. Story 17. I would say the whole Passport Brothers phenomenon is not entirely accurate. Going overseas to find someone who truly likes you can lead to encounters with toxic individuals and gold diggers, which exist in every country and culture. Story 18. What is it with you men and beards? They look like bird nests, and please don't shave your head bald while wearing a thick beard. 90% of the men with neck beards get offended. Story 19. I don't want to discuss inappropriate topics with you. Yes, I noticed, but I'm not going to support harmful cultural attitudes. I've seen how some men in certain countries can engage in harassment and promote a disrespectful culture as if it were acceptable. If you find someone attractive, it's better to express it respectfully, especially if they are single. Story 20. I feel like something broke for boys and men in the last few decades with the acceptance of the idea that boys will be boys. For example, you would never see a woman at a wedding or funeral in jeans and a flannel shirt, but I know a few men who declare that they never dress up and society just accepts it. I never hear anyone discuss it as a problem. Story 21. Very few of you were actually taught not to cry or express your emotions while growing up as a boy. You were taught not to do so in public and not to let your emotions interfere with progress or your masculine performance. While this may sound similar, it carries completely different connotations upon reflection. Story 22. Men need to share vulnerable information more openly with the opposite sex. Go ahead and share. In my experience, the vulnerable moments I have shared, which were supposed to be sacred and built on trust, have been weaponized against me during arguments and shared with their group of friends. Lesson learned the hard way. Story 23. I'm an average-looking guy and a bit of an introvert, but I've been able to get plenty of dates on dating applications. Story 24. Being caught up in arbitrary beauty rankings and assigning a number to people dehumanizes everyone involved and complicates dating unnecessarily. If you find yourself attracted to a woman with a good personality and shared goals, just go for it. Stop worrying about whether she's an 8 or a 9. Focus on whether you are attracted to her looks. This mindset causes some men to hesitate. They may think either, she's out of my league, she would never give a guy like me a chance, or, she's cute, but I can do better. In both cases, they miss the opportunity for what could have been a good relationship. As you get to know someone, you often find them even more attractive. Personally, I've never viewed any woman I was interested in as a number, and I could never imagine thinking of my wife that way. If you're a man who feels he is not good-looking, good hygiene and taking an interest in your appearance can make a significant difference. Story 25. Difficulty dating. If you are having trouble with it, You may need to reevaluate your standards and aim for a target that is more achievable. Story 26. I don't find most modern women's dating and relationship standards to be all that unreasonable, particularly regarding physical attractiveness. I've found there are many factors that can offset an imbalance in that area. Story 27. Not really a men's particular thing, but I know a lot of men complain about video games being disappointing these days. My brother in Christ, you've only played live service games for 6 years. You complained about Call of Duty 10 years ago, and you're still playing and complaining about it. I have a near infinite amount of high-quality games to play and enjoy. The difference is that people aren't willing to try different games. Especially all my friends who say they want to play Baldur's Gate but claim to be too busy. Meanwhile, they continue playing countless Ubisoft games. Story 28. No one is trying to cancel you for looking at others at the gym. It's one of those non-issues that seems more prevalent than it actually is if you are on social media all day. Story 29. Shaving can be challenging, but I feel confident using a machete without risking cuts, and I never experience irritations in that area. Story 30. I believe that men should be the primary earners. When I was growing up, my mother waited until my baby sister started kindergarten before she got a job. My dad appreciated the extra income, and my mother retired after my father. Times have certainly changed since my childhood. Story 31. I spend a lot of time with my son and have done so ever since he was born. I had a unique opportunity as a father to spend so much one-on-one time with him on the weekends while my wife worked long shifts as a nurse. I made it a habit to do something fun with him at least once every weekend, like going to the zoo, playgrounds, carnivals, and comic book and board game conventions. We really spent a lot of time on adventures outside the house. Never once did anyone make any sort of comment about it. No one assumed I was a child molester. However, if you believe online discussions, every time a dad is out with his kids, he is accused by people demanding he proves the child is his. This is a myth and a foolish one at that. It never happens, and it's misguided to focus so much effort on this when there are real issues men face that deserve attention. Story 32. I'm unsure if I will receive backlash for this, but I feel that when some men say, we need to be more open with our emotions and cry more, I do not fully agree. I believe that exploring these ideas without understanding the social implications of projecting them can do more harm than good. Telling a man who prefers to be emotionless or reserved that he would function better if he expressed his feelings in front of women does not help. Women are aware of this and may use it to their advantage. It is acceptable for individuals to act in a way that feels comfortable for them, and it is perfectly fine to embrace traditional notions of masculinity. Story 33. Many men disengage when they hear that women are only interested in the top 1% or top 10%. Instead of striving to improve their own circumstances, they often spend their energy criticizing women. This demoralization among many men ultimately makes it easier for some to succeed. Story 34. Being forced into slavery or second-class citizenship at best by a society focused on gender-centric principles and a movement for feminist superiority. Story 35. General U.S. conservative socio-political beliefs, which the majority of American men broadly endorse based on polling, are not compatible with my outlook on life or the world I want to live in. Story 36. Initiating romance and planning dates is not a burden. In fact, I prefer it because you get to control the setting of the date and lead it to your advantage. Yet many men online constantly complain about having to initiate or plan a date. Story 37. Women aren't wrong for wanting a tall partner, but they are limiting themselves by making this a strict requirement. This is particularly true because many shorter women had fathers who were within acceptable height ranges for dating. Story 38. Men need to stop settling for people who don't care about their feelings and then use that as evidence that they cannot express themselves. You chose that person. You should not settle for those who do not care about you. Story 39. Feminism is not a significant issue for me. It is simply a response to how women have been treated. Many men see it as a threat for some reason. They seem unable to take a different perspective. I don't have to worry about being assaulted or harassed daily as a man. Most of the issues in men's health are self-inflicted because we are told to remain silent and not complain about anything. I believe it's a societal issue that people struggle to take accountability. It's always someone else's fault, not mine. Story 40. Circumcision is not a significant cultural issue for me. It is a parent's choice. If they choose to have their children circumcised, it is no one else's business. Story 41. Dating. I don't know if I'm just lucky, but I've never struggled to attract attractive women, whether for short-term or long-term relationships. It has always come naturally, regardless of where I am. Maybe it will get harder as I age, but I doubt it. If anything, it seems like dating is easier now and that it will continue to get easier as I grow older. Story 42. Not sure about most men, but at least most Southern men have a fondness for pickup trucks, and I think they are all foolish. Story 43. Yes, society treats men unfairly, expecting them to be stoic and resilient. However, we also need to learn to persevere and be tough if we want to succeed in life instead of constantly complaining. Story 44. It is not acceptable for a man to express emotions. I believe it is not perfect, but compared to 10 years ago, it is much better. If you make fun of a man for expressing his emotions, you will be ridiculed, as you should be. Story 45. A happy relationship leads to a fulfilling life. You shouldn't be overly accommodating in the name of peace. Additionally, the ongoing complaints about double standards exist. Address them or choose to ignore them. They only impact you if you allow them to. Story 46. Most of men's problems are caused by patriarchy. Issues with men not being seen as equal parents, discounting male feelings, the disposability of men, and the assumption that men always want sex are rooted in the idea that men are more active participants in society than women. Story 47. Video games are not a good or harmless hobby for most men to have. They are often a significant time sink that provides no valuable skills or meaningful experiences, while also being especially dangerous because they create the illusion of accomplishment. In theory, video games could be a good way to relax, but in practice, many men lose all their ambition and energy to video games. Story 48. They were not afraid to open up with each other. We are. We do this all the time, but it often goes ignored by everyone else. Story 49. I prefer Caddyshack 2 over Caddyshack 1. I believe many men favor the first film because it features more adult content. Story 50. Bro code is not about going against women. When it comes to not dating each other's exes because the other person wouldn't feel comfortable, then it's best to back off. Many of my former male friends have done terrible things just to appear dominant, and it is disturbing how poorly some men treat one another. We are not alone in this situation. Let's support each other and have respect for one another. I am tired of men feeling the need to outdo each other in toxic ways. Healthy competition is fine, but behavior that damages friendships because of stubbornness or lack of empathy is exhausting. Yes, I speak from experience, and I have had enough of it. I am now trying to find new friends after being part of my main group for over 15 years. Starting fresh brings many trust issues, making it incredibly difficult to meet new people without being put off by toxic alpha behavior. For example, one of my former best friends encouraged my ex to cheat on me because she felt she was getting too little attention. It's important to communicate and not create chaos. You are allowed to have feelings and share them. Thank you for listening to my thoughts. Story 51. Cars, girls, and how to attract them both, as well as how to appear confident. We don't agree on much as we are in competition. Story 52. Men should be vulnerable. While I support vulnerability, it heavily depends on the dynamic with whom you share that vulnerability. This is one of the reasons I hesitate to commit to marriage. Despite having a good relationship with my father, I believe it has caused some emotional issues with partners I have considered as potential wives. So far, this has led to a significant shift in our interactions, and not in a positive way. Strangely, they have tried to be close, but emotionally, they felt very distant. The most recent candidate thought she could use my vulnerability against me during a disagreement. The surprise on her face when I brushed it off was amusing, and her later claim that it was a breach of trust was just the icing on the cake. I ended the relationship right then and there. Story 53. Knowing how to release emotions instead of suppressing them to appear strong is important. We should focus on improving our self-talk and not hold onto outdated beliefs that lead to long-term anxiety and triggers, which can turn into anger. It is essential to show more love than toughness in our self-talk. Story 54. That, as between men and women, men are more at fault in relationships. That men need to be more sensitive, and men need to be more egalitarian because women are equal partners in all senses of the word. I have not found this to be the case. Women are just as at fault in their relationships as men are. Women generally do not find sensitive men sexually attractive, and women do not desire to be equal with men in their relationships, except as it pertains to rights. Women do not want equal responsibility and accountability with men. They often reject that responsibility and accountability and pass it off onto others, usually men. Story 55. Most dating advice is inherently flawed. Every woman is different, and much of this advice unintentionally oversimplifies women's behavior with conditional statements. What you need to remember is that women are people, and people can be irrational. You could do everything perfectly, and they might still reject you for arbitrary reasons. Story 56. You should pay child support, and it should be a fair amount. You are financially responsible for your child. Personally, I always planned on providing for my children, and now that I am divorced, I do not see why that would be any different. Aside from housing and furniture for their mother to create a home for them, which is her responsibility now that she has decided we will not have the same home, I do not mind covering all their medical and school costs in addition to child support. It was always the plan. I do not think of them as our children. I think of them as my children. However, the idea of maintaining a quality of life is unacceptable. If she left that life behind. Story 57. I've been made fun of for it, but I don't care. I let whatever woman I'm dating paint my toenails. It's usually hidden, not a fashion statement, but they enjoy it, and it is incredibly relaxing. Sitting there while getting my toenails painted is a moment of quiet serenity that lulls me into deep relaxation. Something about their quiet focus on me and the soft sounds of the brushes and cotton balls puts me to sleep. It is so relaxing. People are missing out. The only downside is that with my ex, it was always preceded by a session with the nail file, which I really disliked. But I have impressive toes that would impress her in bed, so I can't be too mad. Story 58. Who cares what a real man is? Just go out there and be your own kind of man. Make your own choices. It's your life. No one should ever tell you who you should be. It's only for you to decide. Story 59. I shouldn't hit a woman ever. I can think of several situations where it would be justified to save my life or someone else's, or to prevent myself or someone else from getting seriously injured. Protecting a child, my partner, my property, or my pets are circumstances in which I would act. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.